All right, just remember, nothing that we produce should be considered financial, tax, or legal advice. All we produce here is informational, educational, and entertainment content only, nothing more. This Q&A occurs every Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. And also we are still in Clubhouse, fading to another platform, Fanbase, at 7 a.m. Eastern Time. And of course, you can see us on YouTube, Instagram, and X. So today we're going to be talking about the intro to Euro and a few things that you guys may not know about this currency. And we're going to go on the following roadmap. We're going to be talking about two different visions for Europe, what those visions are. We're going to be giving a recap on banks and government, how those things operate. We're going to be talking about the Versailles Treaty, Maastricht Treaty, and then the ECB and Sintra. And we're going to give a recap to the whole thing towards the end. So first, the two visions for Europe. We have two visions for Europe for a very long time. One is the classical liberal, and the other one is the socialist vision. I'm going to go briefly on what the classical liberal vision is. A classical liberal vision for Europe have traits of individualistic cultures. It's the view that every human being is unique, and even though every human being is unique, human life has equal value, but every human is unique. And every human being is sovereign of themselves. They have the autonomy to do things, and each person should be independent and capable of support and taking care of themselves. Of course, be independent and self-sufficient at the same time. So those are the traits of individualistic cultures. And there is also some connection to religion, Christianity, for instance. Now, the socialist vision is different. The socialist vision is a collectivist vision, and where each human being is a sacrificial animal to the collective. And if you want to have a better understanding of that, all you have to do is to read the second chapter of the Communist Manifesto. I have highlighted here. One thing which is incredibly important for those who are socialists, there is no such thing as private property. It's the total abolition of private property and heavy progressive graduate income tax. Now, by heavy and progressive means eventually we are paying 100% taxes. And you can see here confiscation of the property of anyone who migrate outside the country. And the number 5, which is the most important one for this presentation, centralization of credit in the hands of the state by the means of a national bank. And the state has exclusive monopoly of capital and credit. So this is one of the visions. And in this particular presentation, I want you guys to pay attention to this one. Centralization of credit in the hands of the state by means of the national bank. Now, let's go a little bit more on the classical liberal. The main characters that we can think of who are the defenders of this classical liberal are those three guys, Robert Schuman, Alcide de Gasperi, and Konrad Adenauer. So here's what they are. One was the Minister of Finance of the post-war European. The other one founded the Christian Democratic Party. And then the other one was the first Chancellor of the West Germany. Another thing that those guys did, they created a Treaty of Rome in 1957. I'm not going to read the whole treaty. I'm just going to mention a few things which are important for this presentation. That treaty pretty much said that there will be free circulation of goods in Europe, free offering of services, free movement of financial capital within Europe, and free migration. Basically, anyone in the European Union could offer their goods and services and products to any other country that is member of the European Union. So that was the Treaty of 1957, which worked really well until we came with the new socialist view. And those socialist views were defended by Jacques Delors and Francois Mitterrand. Now, by the name, you already know those guys are French, and you know socialists or Marxism grew in Europe thanks to the French Revolution, and they created the guillotine. So the French is pretty much the epicenter. France is the epicenter of the socialist movement in Europe. And one, of course, was the president of the European Commission and helped create the euro, which was achieved in 1992 with the Maastricht Treaty. Now, this Maastricht is a town in Netherlands, and those were the guys who defend the left views for Europe. Now, you may think that the euro is not a left or a socialist creation, and you may think that France has not much participation on that. I'm going to give you a little bit of humor. I try to add humor on every possible presentation. And this time, I'm going to have this man explain to you who are the French. The devil himself will explain it to you.
Now, we're very lucky to be here at the London Palladium tonight because this stage has played host to some truly legendary performers in its time. Harry Houdini,
Peter Andre,
Frank Sinatra,
Little Mix,
Aretha Franklin,
the Venga Boys,
the Beatles,
Mr. Tumble.
And we're very pleased to welcome another legend onto this stage.
Joining the ranks of the Venga Boys and Mr. Tumble, it's Rowan Atkinson!
Hello. It's nice to see you all here. Now, as the more perceptive of you have probably realized by now, this is hell. And I am the devil. Good evening. But you can call me Toby, if you like. We try to keep things informal here, as well as infernal. That's just my little joke. Now, you're all here for eternity, which I hardly need tell you is a heck of a long time. But I'm sure you'll all get to know each other pretty well by the end. But for now, I'm going to have to divide you up into groups, if that's okay. Can you hear me at the rack? Well, if you'd stop screaming, that would help. Okay, now, murderers. Murderers? Over here, please. Thank you very much indeed. Looters and pillagers, over here, please. Thieves, if you could join us. And lawyers, you're in that one. You'd like to come down there. Thank you very much indeed. Yes, there's plenty of room. If the hedge fund managers would just move along a tiny bit. There we go. Fornicators, if you could step forward. My God, there are a lot of you. You're down here, but first, if you could form a queue in front of that small guillotine in the corner there. Thank you very much indeed. The French, are you here? Parfait!
So that was, I think, a good way to represent the French. The devil doesn't name the crimes of the French. He just says, the French, please just go in this direction, right? So, and again, here, heavy progressive graduate income tax and centralization of the credit in the hands of the central bank. Now, the Maastricht Treaty, it creates a mega centralized state in Brussels. It also endorsed welfare, capital control, and hyper-centralized regulation. And one other thing that it does, it undermines the sovereignty of each state in Europe, because the sovereignty of a state today, in terms of having a state, relies on being able to have one single currency to represent that state. And that currency would allow us to measure how strong that economy of that state is, or how powerful that state is. So once we create a treaty for the euro, it puts all the countries with all different languages, all different cultures under one currency. Now, a currency is also a way to form a united identity. Like if you meet someone, for instance, in South Africa, who uses the Swiss franc as a way to escape the inflation in South Africa, those two persons, even though they have never met each other, they would feel like they have a common identity. So it destroys the national identity of a country, partially, not completely, and then replaces that with a new identity of the European identity, because now all those countries are using one single currency. So let's look at banks and government briefly. For those who are members of the Academy, this is not going to be anything new, but let's look at it. So let's look at currency. Banks used to be a place where you deposit your gold and you receive a certificate on the equal amount of gold that you have deposited. And a lot of people may not believe this, so here we have it. This is to certify that there is on deposit in the Treasury of the United States of America, the equivalent in gold. So the previous bills were gold certificates. And you can see here, this certificate is a legal tender in the amount of thereof in the payment of all debts due in public and private acts, as in March 14, 1900, amended in December 1919. So this bill, you could take it to a bank in America and you could withdraw actual gold. Today, the fiat currency has replaced that gold. This is the way they used to be. And eventually, of course, banks could create fake certificates. Instead of being one-to-one, they could create many more. Today, we don't even have the gold as a backing up system. And of course, that creates a bubble. We already know that. Centralized banks allow for a much larger bubble. Now, let's look at government. Government have replaced gold. Today, the fiat currency of the government replaces gold. We have here the Queen Elizabeth, which has been pretty much having her face across all bills, not just in Britain. England was one version of a central bank that went to other borders in other countries. Is a way to look at how powerful that is. And we have the same thing here now in Europe. So fiat money. Remember, this is the way it used to be. This is the way that went eventually wrong. Tantundem. Tantundem means in equal parts. You went from equal parts, not equal parts, to eventually the total abolition of gold and have the government being the one that gives the value or dictates the value of a currency. So let's play a money printing game so you can understand how the euro works. So imagine this. Imagine that Italy has a machine to print euro and Germany has a machine to print euro. Now, whoever prints the fastest first gets the most value of the currency, because once you print the currency, you still have the currency at the previous value. It's only when the currency trickles down to the bottom of the chain that currency loses value. So the central banks, when they print it and they start to purchase things, the price have not been readjusted. So if two individuals have the same printing machine, the one who prints the fastest is the one that's going to be able to cash most of the money. And the one that takes too long to print their money, by the time they print it, inflation has already corroded the value of that money. So once you have the euro, which is one single central bank, and many governments, different governments or different fiscal policies, that's the consequence. Now, I use Germany and Italy because I want to talk about the Versailles Treaty. So the Versailles Treaty, a lot of people who study the euro, they see the euro as an extension or a new remake of the Versailles Treaty. Now, the Versailles Treaty, I'm not going to read to you guys, but this is pretty much what it is. Germany lost the war, and the Versailles Treaty said the following: that the German people must pay all damage to civilians on land or sea or from the air. And Germany is the main economical pillar of Europe and has been that way for a very long time. So the idea is Italy, France, Portugal, Spain, the poorer countries are now able to explore Germany with the euro, because if they print euro faster than Germany does, they're going to be able to get the value of the euro first. And by the time Germany prints their money, that money is already lost value. So let's look at Maastricht Treaty. This is how thin it is. So you can see it's very easy to understand. If you read all the pages, you're going to get a very good understanding of this whole treaty. It's only this thick. It's a very thin book. You can read it. And you can see that it's very comprehensive by how much pages are there. But pretty much all of this can be resumed in the same term. This one single page. Now, if you don't believe me, let's look at this. Greece funds vacation to their workers. So in Greece, vacation is subsidized by the government. Once you retire in Greece, you get 80% of your pension, and a person in Greece receives 14 pension salaries per year. So this is the pace in which the government is printing euro. Now let's look at the pace of Germany. Germany has no vacation being subsidized. Once you retire, you get only 48% of your pension, and that is only 12 salaries per year. So let's go back again so you can see. If you are retired in Greece, you have vacation paid by the government, you collect 80% of your salary on retirement, and you have 14 salaries per year. Germany does not pay vacation, is less than 0.5% of your salary on your pension, and is only 12 salaries per year. So you can see that Germany is printing euro at lower pace than, for instance, Greece. Now, if you don't think still that the euro is a way to make Germany a donor country, let's look at this. This was an event that occurred in Sintra, where central banks meet, and Christine Lagarde was there. This was last year, 2022. Here we have it, what Lagarde said. In Sintra, Portugal, June 30, the European Central Bank will buy bonds from Italy, Spain, Portugal, and Greece with some of the proceeds that it receives from maturing German. Basically, they're going to use money from Germany to buy bonds. What are bonds? Debt, government debt. So she's going to be using the money from Germany to pay for Italy, Spain, Portugal, and Greece bonds. And which other countries is going to take from? Possibly Germany, France, and Dutch. But there's a little trick for the French later. I want to let you guys know. This is the interest rates on Italian bonds by the time she said that. The interest rate was 4%. The interest rate on German was 164. Now, interest rate is something that we determine by how much risk we see on a debt. So if the Italian government asks for a loan, because there's a chance of them not paying, the interest rate goes to close to 4%. Whereas in Germany, it's most likely you're going to receive the money, you charge less interest. So she's taking money from Germany to buy bonds from Italy. That means taking money from a country that's paying their debt on time and then putting that money to buy bonds from Italy. And the reason why she's buying is because she doesn't want the difference between the interest rates. She believes the same credit that Germany has, the same credibility, the same trust should be to all the countries in the European Union. Now, here she makes it even more clear. The central bank has divided the Eurozone, 19 countries, into 3 groups: donors, recipients, and neutrals. Meaning those who have more would have to donate to the recipients. Those who are neither too well off nor too bad off, they're the neutrals. Now, the donors are Germany and Netherlands. Those are the 2 main donors you can see here. The spreads are gauged against German bonds, which serve as de facto benchmark for a single currency area. So whenever you hear people talking about the euro is a way to get money from Germany, in this case, and get that money go to other countries. And she even say more. The ECB will channel towards the recipients part of the cash from maturing bonds that it bought from the donor countries. So again, making very clear that the donor countries is the new name for Germany and Netherlands in this case. Now, the question is, if Germany is supposed to be the donor, can Germany afford to be a donor? We all know that the economy in Germany is on recession. We know that Germany has a situation that the energy prices has gone too high. They are back into burning coal. And even though they do not give free vacation to their retirees or to their government employees, we know that Germany cannot afford to be a donor country. Now, my view is, if you ask a country or someone to be a donor when they cannot afford it, that is going to bring into conflict. Now, the euro is also a fiduciary currency, and most fiduciary currencies have a life of 30 to 40 years. And I would say that this situation of the euro will increase tensions in Europe. And I think Germany already has some political parties talking about letting go of the euro and having their own currency. And if they do that, I think France is going to be the first country to reject that, and the recipient countries will not like it. There is also a discussion about Italy already printing their own money because they do not want to deal with the restriction on their expenses imposed by the euro. So I view the euro as another way to cause friction and war in Europe. And if a lot of people actually blame the World War II on the Versailles Treaty because it caused Germany to have to pay for things that they could not afford. And I think the euro is doing the same thing. And if Germany tries to move out of the euro, I think that's going to bring further conflict in Europe. That's my view. I hope to be wrong, but following the money and following evidence in history, I think either Germany would walk out of the euro or we're going to have conflict in Europe or both. So let me leave a little recap on this. I gave you the two visions for Europe. We talk about the centralized power versus distributed power. I hope I shone some light on the fact that the euro enables for some countries to exploit other countries, the donor countries such as Europe and Netherlands. Maastricht Treaty is the treaty that created the euro, and many economists do see this as just another version of the Versailles Treaty. Now, the World War II had one peace treaty, which was killed by Nixon, which was the Bretton Woods Agreement. When I heard about the Bretton Woods Agreement being broken and understood that was the peace treaty of the Second World War, I was like, okay, how much longer before we have the global war? And I think we are reaching that point now. Now, I also hope I showed you guys that Germany cannot afford to be a donor. If you're following the channel, you must have seen some videos before where I talk about Germany being on a crisis. Now, you also see the energy crisis worsening the economical crisis in Germany, because with the whole thing with the Nord Stream pipe and the situation with Russia, the price of energy went up, and that is bringing Germany into a worse economical crisis. And the idea of having Germany as a donor, I don't think is a great idea. So if you want to find out more about those kinds of subjects and being in control of your money, please consider joining the Crypto Vagabonds Academy. Link on the description below. If you like this content, please like, subscribe, click the notification bell, share this video with someone who you think may benefit from this. And with this, I finished the presentation, and I'm going to try to answer your questions.